Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Astral Tourists. I'm your hostess with the mostest. Just kidding. I'm just teasing you a little bit, but you'll see why I said that after we get going here. So today we're heading back to the MallWorlds, where the bathrooms are sketchy, the architecture is megalithic at times, and apparently I'm now for hire as an interdimensional hostess. Maybe with the mostest. We'll see. So let's dig into the logs. So just in case we have some newer listeners, before we dive into the total deep end of the MallWorlds, I want to share my current memory coding, trick. So lately, well, for a long time, on and off, along with other things, I've been setting a very simple intention before sleep. Remember to remember. And during the day, I practice it and pretend I'm already asleep, like I visualize it. So you can practice doing it so that it becomes a habit, just like you practice reality checks. And then you're like remembering inside remembering. That's how I think of it, like a bubble in a bubble. And sometimes I'll repeat that 3 and 4 times, like remember to remember to remember to remember to remember. And think of all the bubbles and all the different states of consciousness I'll just be becoming lucid inside of. And that's one of my little tips there. So I hope it helps y'all. Use whatever works for you, of course. I'm not the only way to do things out there. So I was just sharing. And also I'm not always trying to force a projection. Sometimes the physical body just needs to rest. But I have a habit of spontaneously popping out anyway. So when I'm purposefully just resting and I'm popping out anyway, like autonomously, remember to remember is also my little way of making sure that the memories actually make it back to the waking world with me. Because there's nothing worse than waking up knowing and feeling like, you had a 5-star adventure or many or something, and you have 0 clues about what it was or where it was. And also I've gone into other details before in the tips section about making mental bookmarks and the reality checks and all of that. So I won't spend too long on that. I just wanted to pop that in there for the new folks and let you know there is a how-to section playlist you can consult as well. Okay, so these are a few of my astral projections and lucid dreaming states towards the beginning of February. These are not the more recent ones. And a lot of these are mixed states. And I think you'll be able to tell which is which. I kind of have to suss it out sometimes after I wake up. Because if I know I'm going to bed to rest, I'll sometimes be dreaming. But since I've spontaneously popped out as well, I'll be like lucid dreaming over the astral. And there are ways to clear that up. And one of the most simple ways is clarity now, clarity now. So anyway, here goes. So this one happened in like super early February. It was around midnight after I was able to pop out of my body. I lost the ability to remember. I had that blackout phase some of us get. And I regained lucidity mid-flight. I was going so fast, super light fast. But instead of being in space, I was descending into this massive megalithic city. Now, this makes sense some later, too. So think supersized architecture with bright light. So this was not a mall yet. So I'm coming down into this huge city. And in the main square, there were these 2 enormous golden statues of lions, or maybe golden panthers. They were stretched out, like they were really long, like they were catnapping. Only their heads were not laying down. They were in like an alert pose, but resting. So they were either lions or golden panthers of some kind. I think lions. And they were decked out in these brilliant red flowers, stretched out, like I was saying. I'm referring to my notes here because I have so many to share. I want to make sure not to miss anything. And since I was low on energy and my flying was getting a bit kind of glitchy and erratic, I was losing control a bit just from lack of energy. I decided to just land on one of these statues. And both of these were several city blocks long. So I figured, why not just try to land on one of these and not even make it to the street, so that I could regain stability and control. And so I landed on one, and I was thinking about taking a cat nap because my mind was doing that. My mind was like, hey, let's take a cat nap on the big cat. But I noticed I wasn't alone. Like a few blocks down the statue's back. Remember, these are huge. So, I noticed there was another man resting way across over there, still on this statue. So we had a quick telepathic exchange from the distance. I was like, is it okay if I rest here too? Is the seat taken or something, or saved? I've had that happen where seats are saved. And he was cool with it. So I just kind of zoned out. I didn't have memory. I knew I was there. And that's one thing you can do to stay in the astral, is to let yourself rest while you're there if you're in a safe place. So that's what I did. I wasn't feeling like I was in any danger or anything. And, if you ever feel that way, you can always wake yourself up. Learn to wake yourself up. It'll come in handy sometimes. Anyway, so once I became lucid again, I was still there. I was so happy I didn't actually wake up in the physical. And I was like, wow, I'm still here in this huge megalithic city. Yay, wow. But he had moved much closer to me. He was only like maybe a foot away from me or 2 feet away from me at the most, just staring at me, just waiting for me to wake up. So I was like, maybe this guy's kind of creepy, huh? So those were my thoughts. My thoughts were, well, he didn't do anything to wake me up, but he's staring there like, sit there like, you gotta wake up, wake up. I thought he was kind of creepy. And he did eventually move in a little bit for communication, which I was okay with, because the closer I am to somebody, the better I can hear them telepathically. But then all he was trying to do was flirt. So, I gave him a firm no on that because I really wanted to fly around. And to his credit, he respected that boundary. He was a total gentleman about it. And, he was like a little disappointed, I could tell, but, oh well. And I took off to explore the city, and he took off to do whatever he was going to do. So I just thought that him staring at me was the weirdest part. But he didn't really do anything that wrong other than the staring. And who knows, maybe that's partly what got me lucid again anyway. And so I guess we can thank him for that. So the next part of this is I actually woke up in the physical world. I did a 4 a.m. bathroom run. So I didn't wake up until 4 a.m. And so I was doing the wake back to bed method to try and go back because I really wanted to explore that city. And if I had succeeded, I didn't remember because I knew I had taken off. I knew I was seeing some things and I woke up. So I was really trying really hard to remember the vibe of the place. And ident can include how it feels to you. You can kind of slip back into it too. If you go back to sleep without moving, it's easier, but I actually had to use the bathroom. So I had to get up and do that. And I was trying to slip back into that state. I was putting my body in the same position it had been in. Sometimes that can help. And, I remember popping out again, and not with a pop sound. I just kind of slid out or something. I don't remember fully. And I was right in a mall again. But because of how that city felt, I kind of had that vibration too. So I'm thinking it's a MallWorld that was in this city. So the catnap city, maybe we can call it. So catnap MallWorld, I don't know, Lion World, megalithic Lion World. We'll have to brainstorm some ideas for names of this place. But I'm pretty sure I got back there, only I got into a MallWorld area of it. I could feel the vibes, I could. And this mall was enormous and gigantic and matched, the vibe and the rest of this, that original city. So I had some success, but I did not get back to those statues. So that's where I failed. And if you've spent some time in the astral, the struggle of trying to find a bathroom, right? I wasn't 100% lucid. I had just used the bathroom in the waking world. And so I was wandering around trying to find a bathroom, like semi-lucid. And I hate when I do that. I should say dislike. But wow. And in the mall world, some of the bathrooms are absolute nightmares, like messes everywhere, very odd shapes, things out of place. You think you're alone and then somebody just comes in on you. And sometimes it's like innocent because they don't even see you. I often go around in a wispy form, so I'm not always like seen unless I want to be seen. So that's partly on me, right? But I finally was looking around. I found one with a shower. It was very small, like tiny closet size. And I thought, maybe I can grab a quick shower. And there was also like a tiny mirror and a tiny sink and everything. And I looked at myself and I looked like I used to in my 20s, only with dark brown hair instead of my blonde hair that I had in my 20s. So I was like, wow, I'm a brunette. And that got me more lucid. I was like, oh yeah, MallWorld, focus. And then somebody comes and tells me that my quote unquote father has arrived. They didn't actually come in the bathroom actually, so that was nice of them. They were like telepathing like through the wall or something. And I was like, that's weird because I don't have a close relationship with my father. He's passed on now, but I never did. And so I thought, well, I still better find out what this is about. And, I was getting more lucid, so I knew I could like skip the shower. I didn't really need one. I was in, mall land after all, mall world. And I zoomed out of there into like one of the enormous hallways. And it looked totally, this guy that was looking for me looked totally like David Hasselhoff. Now remember, people can shape change in the astral. So I don't know, maybe somebody was dreaming about one of their favorite actors or something. I've never been like the hugest fan. I have nothing against him, but I just don't think my own mind would do that. And I can't figure out why it might. So I think that part was totally astral. And again, I was more lucid and I knew I was astral. And so I think somebody else was like thinking David Hasselhoff stuff and did like a little mini transformation. And I also wouldn't be, like just dreaming about my father or encountering him in the astral. I actually have a few times, but it went nothing like this. So I think this is just somebody going around the mall. I'm thinking to myself, why is he looking like David Hasselhoff? That doesn't really matter, though. Why is he giving off father vibes, though? Why is somebody telling me he's my father? And, but there was an energy about him that was caring. So I think that's where the whole father analogy came from. He was giving off very, very caring energy, like he's there to take care of everybody. So I just decided to roll with it because it was a caring energy. This was a being that was kind of magnanimous feeling, actually, with the whole, taking on an image of a star and everything. So I had already analyzed all of this in my mind. And I came out because apparently he was looking for me, and he didn't say much, but there was one of these enormous grocery stores that we see in these malls sometimes. And so we were in there, and he had already, it had already been done. So that's why the person had come to get me. He had already taken care of this. He bought me 2 massive carts of groceries and was walking me to the parking lot. And there were 2 other ladies with us who were taking care of the carts. And I asked him, because I knew he wasn't my father, so I just asked him, what do you do for a living? And he told me very seriously that he was the local area comptroller. So this is like a MallWorld manager type, like higher up, at least mid-level management. And I guess, even the astral plane needs middle management. And I still don't know why he felt responsible for me, or if maybe we have some kind of a trading relationship, or maybe I'm a frequent visitor to that city and I don't always remember going there because I know I forget a lot of places I've been. But he was very caring, like we already knew each other. He didn't like lie to me and say, yes, yes, I'm your father. He was just giving off those vibes. After he told me about being the area comptroller, he said he was really busy and had to go. So he left me there in the parking lot with these two enormous shopping carts full of groceries. And this next part is kind of weird, but you know, a lot of these astral projections are. So I found this, stick that was just sticking out to me in my mind, like in the parking lot. It was a grayish parking lot, huge, enormous to match the mall, right? That was behind me now. And it was really long, like think a walking stick long. And it had little wheels on the end of it, and I wondered what they were for, so I bent down to look. And what do I see but a tiny living wooden owl perched on it, like it was part of it. Like, I don't know if this is some kind of a nature spirit that shape-shifted into a wooden owl, or if this is like some kind of pre-made thing that people can make that are kind of autonomous. So what it did after I bent down and I was looking at it is it looked at me, it ruffled its feathers, and like it was perking up. So I picked up this long walking stick, and it had little wheels at the end where the owl was riding. Like there was like this perch there for it between the wheels. And so I began to roll it along, and it looked really happy about that. I was like just having fun there in the parking lot with this owl, the cutest little owl. And I was, remember this, the parking lot is as vast as the mall at least. So I'm just kind of making my way across. There aren't too many vehicles around or anything, so I don't have to worry about, watching out for stuff. And we came across this cricket that was larger than the owl. I mean, still pretty small compared to how I was, but it was like a steampunk engineered or something. It was really interesting looking. I did my best to tell the picture generator what everything looked like for the picture that I have for the thumbnail. And it's not exact, of course, but it's pretty close. And the main difference is that they're looking at each other. I mean, the owl's like looking up at this, what looks like to it a giant cricket, right? That's steampunk and stuff. And just, it wasn't concerned with the cricket at all. It was like just hanging out with me. And I just thought that was so cute. Like, and the cricket observed it, and then the cricket went on its way. And the owl just looked bemused, and I'm just like, okay, I'll roll the owl around some more. And so right while I was pondering like the symbolism of the wooden owl and just getting lost in my own thoughts and walking around this enormous parking lot, floating, I should say. I generally float along. Like I like to hang my toe a little bit to the ground, so I'm always kind of grounded, but I was still floating. And really fast, a heavy gray helicopter came and slammed into the parking lot. Actually, it slammed into a boulder. Like a ways away from me, there was this huge gray boulder, not a mountain, a boulder. And the helicopter, there was a space in front of the boulder for it, but it came in too fast and it slammed against the boulder and then down onto the lot. But it didn't tip. And then two elderly people got off. So I zoomed over there quicker. And I don't know what happened to the owl and the stick because I lost track of them. So I don't know because I wasn't paying attention. Maybe they went off to do their own thing. Or just, I don't know. But I didn't have them anymore. So the whole scene was the helicopter now. And that's where my attention was. So I was trying to zoom over there to make sure that everything was okay. I've had some rough landings in the astral before where people were really nice to me. So I was going to be that person too, passing it on, and just because I would anyway. And these two elderly people got off and they were telepathing really quickly, but they didn't seem like anything was wrong. But I immediately got that one's an ex-vet, and I knew he was a biker type. He was in a leather jacket. And there was a woman just in comfortable clothes. I don't remember exactly what she was wearing. I mean, maybe even pajamas. And let's say they're in their 70s to 80s, possibly. That's my guess. And so, way at the far end of this parking lot, which is where they were going, I decided to escort them over because we had gotten up a conversation and everything. There was a set way at the end. There was this forest, and there was this set of rickety stairs leading into a golden wooded path. And the vibe shifted from morning at the mall to golden hour in the woods. Those are the names I used in my memory bookmark. I made a bookmark right there. I even stopped and I was like, I've got to bookmark this. And they were nice about it and paused for a few minutes. And I was like, okay, I remember everything. And because the stairs were rickety, I told the man to take his time on the stairs because I realized I was out of my physical body and had basically nothing but time. And I knew for that next morning, I had time to sleep in if time was running over. So I helped him up the stairs, and one was going faster than the other one, and I could see one was going down a pathway through the woods, the golden woods, and then it all came flooding back to me that that's the way I had come earlier in the evening. And it just came flooding back. I've been down that way before, which means I know I've been to that mall before and probably that city before, but I definitely remember that path through the woods. And so I don't really know where this mall might be other than the astral plane, but I know that was very familiar. I remember on my way through to get there, it was a flashing memory, an old bookmark, I'm sure, that I didn't really make it all the way through. But I remember I had been going really fast through that golden path in the woods to get somewhere, maybe that mall. So that's one of the exits that particular set of woods has. Sorry, I have a lot to cover, and when I think back on it, it's like I'm running the energy again too. I'm like, there was a lot of energy in that projection, in these projections. And I'm accessing the bookmarks, I'm accessing the energy. So I don't know, maybe you get a taste of it, I hope, in a good way. So in a way, I came full circle on that because I remembered at least a glimpse of the beginning part of getting there. So for this next one, which happened on a whole different night, I'm calling it the interdimensional mall gig. So February's been, a lot of mall time for me. MallWorld February 2026, I guess we can say. So this is afterwards. I noted this as being after the last one. A few nights later, I was back in the gig economy of an astral mall somewhere in the universe. So I didn't know where in the universe I was. Again, I had gotten out of my body. I knew that. And I was in this mall, and it looked really empty and dark. I was like, why am I here? It's dark. I didn't like that about it, but I also didn't feel fear or like something was coming after me or anything. I was okay, but I was like, it's pretty dark. Why would I be here? And then there was somebody there with me, I think a woman, but I couldn't really make her out. And she telepathed and told me an ancestor, that's the word she used, was hiring me to help out at a social club because I'm good at socializing. So I wasn't sure what to make about that because I've had ancestor dreams and astral projection contacts before, and this has never been like a way that they have ever contacted me. Usually there's a potluck involved and family, and I'm introduced to these people that I don't even know from ages ago or maybe even from other dimensions. But this, just a dark mall and an ancestor wanting to hire me, I was like, I didn't know what to make about that, really. I was a little bit skeptical, but considering I was already there and I'm the curious type anyway, I decided to roll with it again. And who knows, maybe even meet an ancestor. The directions she gave me were pretty clear but unclear, like very liminal. There were all these turns I was supposed to make, through this dark mall. So I just had to go by the feel of it. And she came with me part way for some of them. But there were all these, different curves and turns and, go for so long and then turn there. And I'm like, how secret is this club? And then I was supposed to come to a liminally lit space where I was also instructed to curve around slowly. Like that would be the place to go really slow through it. Now, that's not the first time I've encountered that. And so this area was very dimly lit. It was curvy, and it felt totally like a foggy portal. And some portals are like this. I've covered this before. I don't remember specifically which episode. I think it was one regarding fairies, maybe. But yeah, some portals you can't just go through. There's like special requirements, like you have to tune your energy so far one way or another, or phase very, very slowly and intentionally. Think of it like the locks on the doors or the portals. There are all these things that can trip you up in a portal, but if you know how to do them, it's not a big deal. It's like locking your door 3 times here. You don't want just anybody coming in, only those you've invited. So I was very slow, and even though the fog looked like it went straight ahead, I remembered her instructions to curve. So like right before the middle of it, I began to like curve my astral body very slowly. And as soon as I did that, everything came into view. So apparently I followed the instructions properly, and I could see that the destination was a bit like a club. It was a mix of a bar, a really plushy high-end restaurant, and using my 360 vision, which I don't recommend unless you're flying, but I've learned to use it when I'm more on the ground, and I know that I'm really stable in the astral. If you do it on the ground in the astral, when you're stable, you can see through walls and see further ahead and stuff. But it can throw you off if you're not used to it. So, with caution, like a yellow light when you're on the ground. So anyway, I was using that in order to see more clearly ahead. And I could see that there was also like a kitchen and a clinic in the background, and like all of these cabinets and things with all this stuff in them. Medications, I suppose, potions. I didn't know, but I knew like this place was really big. Again, a really large space. And I did a 360 on my own astral avatar again, and I had incredibly lush hair and a beautiful dress on, and I knew what color it was like a few days ago, and now I don't. So something bright, though, which is common for me when I actually want to be seen. So one of the ladies asked if I needed anything, and I really wanted to visit this ancestor. I was asking her about my ancestor who wanted to hire me and all that. But all she did was point him out. She indicated, and she pointed to a bar area that was way, let's say 2 or 3 miles across that space. I mean, remember, this is all vast again. And he was there, and he was way in a back part of the area from the lounge, which is where we were. We were in like a restaurant/lounge area more towards the front of the entrance. And I could tell from that distance, though, that he was balding, really busy, and wearing a kind of red tweed suit, or maybe just one with some stripes or something. And that's all I could make out. And before I could make an intention to zoom over there and say hi, she began downloading a bunch of information telepathically to me about how he had specially requested me, as I had a really good reputation, and they needed to ensure their reputation was like immaculate and kept up to one of the very highest standards. Now that made me wonder what might have previously happened there, that they might be worrying about this, right? So it was super busy, and before I could even think to go over to say hi to him, she just had left me with instructions to ensure about their reputation was kept up. And I was almost immediately like in the thick of it. People were asking questions. I don't even remember a lot of them. I spent the rest of the shift hostessing. Just, like, yes, go sit over there. This is where you go for that. I don't even know how I knew most of this. Maybe she had told me. And with that whole download of information that happened spontaneously there. But I do remember taking some time in the gift shop. So there's this whole gift shop with tables of crystals, the mists that one can inhale in the astral. I've talked about these before in other episodes. It's pretty trippy stuff. So there was this one table with Egyptian spells. There were vials with the spell written out on a paper attached to them. The spells were written out on the papers that were attached to them, and they were in other languages, which I could not make out. I assumed they might be in Egyptian, but that would be an assumption. I don't really know. And let me look at my notes here for a minute. I wrote down that there was one in particular that she was interested in because she was really wanting to help with making a really important decision in her life. So she wanted something that would help her decide. I zoomed in more closely to take a better look at it, and it just looked like a really goodwill kind of a spell and had that kind of a vibe to it, like increasing the vibrational rate and like a little doorway and stuff. And I didn't want to like get too into it because that would have made the spell happen right there for me instead of her, right? When you tune in like that to something, it can sometimes open it, or sometimes you phase into it and that's how it opens. So I didn't want to get that far into it. But she was really sure after I had like done that and she was reading my mind while I was doing that, then she became really sure that that's the one that she wanted. I don't know what she saw because she did not tell me. And she did tell me what her decision was about, but I don't really want to share it here. It was a really tough one. And I know it would still be anonymous, like who would ever know who she was, but I'm still not going to mention what it was. But it meant a lot to her. And at least she found something that could help her. Later, I remember I was just wandering around, like checking the back areas. I've been like hired in the Astral before to do security, so I'm always like peeking in the back spaces and the little closets and, all the empty spaces and things. And I did come across a confused looking man who had wandered into the kitchen area. And he told me he was looking for medicine for his pet rats and then added birds as kind of an afterthought. So I'm not sure if they were like rats with wings or something, or if he really meant rats and birds. That part was kind of ambiguous. Remember, I'm, in this big area, maybe one of these big grand astral cities. I don't know what the wildlife is like there. So he was zoned out a bit and gazing at this enormous pot of tomato soup. Remember, everything on the grand scale again. And the pot was metallic and silver. It was almost totally to the brim with the tomato soup. He was thinking maybe that can help him, help his pets. And I told him it's best not, to not just take something and guess at it. And remembering my task is to be precise and like the best of the best, immaculate and all of that. I didn't want to give him the wrong information either. So I made a telepathic request, just a louder one, to see if anybody who knew about animal medicine was in the area. And it didn't happen right away, but like within a few minutes, and in those few minutes I was like just talking with him a little bit and letting him zone out, telling him, no, don't look in the cabinet there and guess. There was all of this, don't guess stuff. But eventually a man in a white coat did appear or come in through the far right door, I think is what happened actually. And he was the one that said he knew about the animals. and what to do. And he went to the cabinet, and I don't know what he gave the fellow. So, it's curious, even in a magical mall, gigantic one or shop, people are still just sometimes looking for a little advice or, help with their pet supplies. And I never did meet my ancestor. I woke up shortly after that. I remember chatting with a few people, and one of the ladies, again, about something in the cabinet, but they're vague memories, and they didn't really stick. So that's the most I have from this one. And I'm like, I don't know if the guy really was my ancestor, or if ancestor is just a term that my brain made to help understand the situation. Like maybe it really just means a helpful guide or a helpful being who needed some help, or, I'll never know. And, unless I see him again and he presents the same way, I just won't ever know. And I have to live with that when I have these experiences that I might never, because I can't always go back. I do have the ability to return sometimes, but it's not that honed that I can do it every time, unfortunately. So, that was that one. This last one is shorter, and we're almost to the end. So this is what I've called another big hair moment. So finally, it says this happened around February 9th. I had one more MallWorld visit. This time I manifested as a misty, shadowy woman. So I guess I didn't have enough light or something to light myself all the way up or whatever, but I was showing as very shadowy and dark. Not negative, remember, shadowy does not equal like evil, and dark does not equal evil at all. It's just a lack of light. So I was misty, shadowy with this massive curly hair. And it was only my hair that was puffy and fully formed. The rest of me was really quite wispy. Like, I don't know, maybe I'd be afraid of myself if I saw that in the physical. Gotta laugh about that one. But I was in another one of these grocery stores in another mall. I don't know which one. Maybe one of the ones I've been to before, maybe not. But it was, pretty busy in there. And there was a woman with a toddler who was sitting in the front end of a grocery cart. And I didn't realize they were even next to me. And I don't know if they had even seen me until they were almost right on top of me anyway. But the cart stopped. So I figured the woman had seen me, especially with my big hair. And, the toddler was absolutely mesmerized by my hair and kept reaching out to squeeze the curls. It was super permed. And I did perm my hair like a few times in my 20s and 30s. So, I don't know. But anyway, the toddler kept reaching and stretching their arm out in, usual Astral fashion. Like, toddlers are pretty small, but the arm stretched and the hand stretched and got bigger and made the squeeze in my thick curly hair. And it was just all very weird but fun at the same time. And the mom started apologizing. I couldn't really make her out. She was a little bit wispy too, but she wasn't darker like I was that time. She had some light going on and some light blues, I think, and I don't know what else. Some, pale whites and ivories or something. Maybe she was wearing a pattern. But I told her it was totally fine. And I ended up explaining to her that I don't usually look like that, like some shadow. And back home in the physical, I'm over 50 years old with, way more plainer hair now. And we had a really good laugh about how fluid form is in the astral. And, there's a tip. Whenever I want to stand out or avoid just being a misty vapor, I often go for the big hair and wear colorful, bright clothing. So that's your tip now. And, it's my go-to for making sure I'm seen, even if I have to do something neon or, really strange. And it can also ground you in the environment, especially if you try to match the environment. It's like a resonance there. So, use your 360 vision to take a peek at yourself, or use a mirror. And if you're kind of wispy and people aren't seeing you, if you're one of these people I see asking in the forums, why can't anybody see me? It's because sometimes you need to make the actual intention to be seen. And one of the ways to do that is to adorn yourself purposefully with something bright and colorful, whether that's clothing, making your hair different or light up, or a neon accessory of some kind. It helps a lot. Sometimes you have to intentionally do it. So that's the tip there. Check yourself out however you can, 360 or the mirror. And if you're not looking that visible, you got to light yourself up. Now keep in mind this uses energy and will also possibly shorten your astral projection some. But if you want to be seen, it's worth it. So, gauge your time wisely and your energy wisely. And, light up. I know this has been a long one. Thanks for tuning in. So stay tuned for yet another MallWorld episode. It's going to be a lot shorter, and I'm posting that one separately as it was quite unique, and I wanted to do that one separately for that purpose and reason. And also I will be covering healing in the astral. So originally I had thought I would do this in 2 episodes, but it's now 3 episodes because I want to set that one particular one aside. And I've been, putting the healing episode together for a little while here because that one is really important to someone out there I know, and maybe more people. I don't know. So please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Share if you feel so inclined with, people you think that it might help out. Until next time, happy astral travels, everyone. And next time won't be too long from now. Ta-ta.